Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues, co-chairs, organizers, attendees, guests, friends. Thank you for inviting me as former president of the government of Catalonia to this international conference and to talk about and to explain the experience of the Catalan government and the Catalan pro-independence movement in our negotiation with the Spanish government. Before entering into the details of the negotiation, I want to express, as former president of Catalonia, and I think in behalf of all the people in Catalonia who support the independence of our country, our support to the Kurdish people in your struggle for peace, justice, freedom, equity. We both, Catalonia and Kurdistan, as other nations are in the same position, we are oppressed nations in our path to freedom and to full sovereignty. So we are with you. Your struggle is our struggle. Before going into detail, I want to underline the fact that Catalonia, since today, has made significant progress thanks to negotiation and dialogue in the last years. Step by step, often slowly, sometimes against strong resistance, we have demonstrated that political courage and democratic methods can open doors that once seemed permanently closed. But one decisive step remains ahead of us: resolving the core political conflict. Even Spain's Prime Minister, Pedro Sánchez, has publicly recognized, both during the negotiations and still today, that the underlying political conflict remains unresolved. And it can only be settled through democratic means, by allowing the people of Catalonia to vote and decide their future. Before explaining in detail the political process, the process of negotiation between the Catalan government and the Spanish government, a few words about the origins of the conflict between Catalonia and Spain. Catalonia is a nation with a long-standing history of a struggle for our freedom, our identity, our language. In the last centuries, most of the time, we have been under dictatorship oppression by the Spanish state. Since the end of the dictatorship, the Franco's dictatorship in Spain in the decade of the 70s of last century, Catalonia recovered autonomy, but the problems associated to the decentralization process led to a process of reform of our Statute of Autonomy law. That process ended with an agreement with the Spanish Parliament, an agreement that was unilaterally changed by the Constitutional Court, biased with a right-wing, ultra-nationalist point of view about how Spain must be configured. This led to a crisis, a constitutional crisis, an escalation of the positions that culminated in 2017 with the referendum on independence. This referendum was approved by the Catalan Parliament, organized by the Catalan government. The reaction of the Spanish government, the Spanish police, was first the suspension of the autonomy of Catalonia, and second, the beginning of a repression against the leadership, activists, and people in Catalonia that were committed with the independence of our country. Our government at that time was either imprisoned or forced into exile. The Speaker of our Parliament, Carme Forcadell, was imprisoned also. The leaders of our civic society organizations were also put into jail. A lot of judicial procedures against mayors, activists, also public officials only for their work during the time of the referendum were issued against all these people. In 2019, the Supreme Court of Spain issued a ruling condemning the leaders and taking all the condemns to them. The sum was about 1 century of imprisonment for all of them, with a maximum of 13 years for the leaders that were more prominent. After that, in Catalonia, there were big demonstrations, new clashes with the police. But then, at that time, in a moment of crisis, the opportunity arrived. Sometimes the opportunity arrives when you are not the most prepared situation to manage it, but then the opportunity arrived. General election in Spain, the Socialist Party needed the votes from Esquerra Republicana, from the Republican left, the left-wing pro-independence party in Catalonia. So they needed our votes. We offered them in change of a process of negotiation towards a political solution. So in November of 2019, we started informal conversations with the Spanish government, and I remember clearly my conversation with Pedro Sánchez, the Prime Minister of Spain, and in a non-public meeting on December 2019, and I said to him, I defend the self-determination of Catalonia. I defend full independence for Catalonia, and I know that you reject that position, but I know that you want a political solution. We don't know which will be the solution at the end of the process, but we have the opportunity to engage, to start a process a negotiation process to reach a solution, a democratic political solution for the conflict between the Catalan people and the Spanish state. 1 month after, an agreement between two parties, Esquerra Republicana, the pro-independence left-wing party in Catalonia, and the Socialist Party, the party that nowadays also is currently, they are ruling the Spanish government. An agreement was set up, an agreement that first recognized the existence of a political conflict. Secondly, that a negotiation is needed to solve this conflict. And what I think is a very, very important step forward, that the solution, the ultimate solution will be in a vote, will be reached in a vote by the Catalan people. Here, finding the correct words that both parties can feel comfortable, it's very important. So our proposal was a referendum on self-determination. They were rejecting that position. But they have in mind that perhaps having a vote could be a solution. On what? We don't have the agreement, but a democratic solution. So since then, we started the negotiation process with the settlement of this agreement. From the beginning, we were facing a dilemma between the opportunity to advance in a negotiation process with our opponents, with the Spanish government, to reach a political solution and to overcome the suffering of our people, and the dilemma with this opportunity, and the need to avoid being used by the Spanish government only to have our votes and then forget about the political solution. Balancing this, it was, and it is still today, very difficult. How we solve that dilemma? Looking at the alternative. At that time, the alternative, when we were negotiating a new Spanish government, the alternative were new elections and the possibility of a government formed by the Popular Party, the right-wing party, and Vox, the far-right, ultranationalist Spanish party. So we solved this and we start the negotiation process. On February 2020, there were the first meeting of the negotiation table, a public meeting. It was important for us to this meeting, related to this meeting, to be shown publicly, because in fact it implies a recognition of the Catalan government as a legitimate actor defending the rights and the interests of the Catalonians. And that was very important. We defended during all the time of the negotiation process that the actors who sit in the table were the Catalan government that represents the interest of the citizens of Catalonia, and the Spanish government. Obviously existed and were very important back channels made by people from the different parties that enable this process to advance. But this first meeting was the first time that the government of Catalonia officially asked to the Prime Minister of Spain in a public meeting for a referendum of self-determination, as to the releasement of the political prisoners, the end of the repression against the activists that are in favor of independence. After that meeting, we continued working, but then there was a deadlock because of the pandemic. That was, well, an important obstacle. And there were also Catalan elections. In that elections, the leadership on the Catalan side changed. I was elected president after that elections, and my commitment with this negotiation process was absolute. And I think that was also a step forward to build trust between the two parts that were participating in the negotiation process. Since then, May, June 2021, we resumed the negotiation table. We continue with the negotiation process, and we achieved some agreements. The releasement of the political prisoners, the reform of the criminal code of Spain. We suppressed, in an agreement with the Spanish government, with the approval, obviously, by the Spanish parliament, we suppressed the crime of sedition. That was the crime that of what were accused our comrades, our leaders that were condemned on 2019. So no more exists in the Spanish law the crime of sedition, and never would be applied to anyone looking for political independence, for constitutional change. We achieved other agreements, some measures on the protection of the Catalan language as a way to build confidence between the two parts of the negotiation. Now, Catalan language can be spoken in the Spanish parliament, and this in terms of symbolism about the plurilinguistic and plurinational feature of the Spanish state is a big step forward. And now the use of the Catalan language as an official language of the European Union is being discussed in European institutions as a proposal of the Spanish government. So in many ways, there is an important step forward. And finally, we approved on May 2024 the amnesty law as a way to end completely the repression. I have to acknowledge that this law has not been enforced completely. It reminds the freedom, in fact, of one former president of Catalonia, Carles Puigdemont, and the possibility of the leader of Esquerra Republicana, Oriol Junqueras, to fully participate as political actors. Oriol Junqueras is disqualified from office, and to overcome this situation is part of the amnesty law. We are still waiting for that. Recently, we had the support of the Constitutional Court, so there are some steps forward that we have seen, but I have to underline what I said at the beginning of my speech, that the the core of the political conflict, the political will of the Catalan people to decide their future, and the rejection of the Spanish state, that is why we have this political conflict, this is not still solved. And we'll have a long road to walk on in order to find this political solution. And 5 final thoughts, lessons learned about our negotiation process. The first one, we need a long-term vision. This is a long road. In a conflict that has its roots in history for centuries, it cannot be solved from night to day. It cannot be solved in 24 hours, in 1 week, even in 1 year. We need time, and time in politics means commitment. So first, for me, it's necessary a long-term vision, a long-term view. Second, our process was a non-linear process. We did 2 steps forward, then 3 steps backward. We suffered a lot of boycotts, some from bodies of the Spanish institutions and the Spanish power. For example, the members of the government that were participating in this negotiation process, we discovered that we were under surveillance of the intelligence agency of the Spanish government. That it is not a surprise, but we discovered, and now the former director of the Spanish intelligence agency is prosecuted in a court in Barcelona for this. So this is an important step forward. But the process is non-linear. So sometimes you feel that you are losing the position, but it's important to maintain your strategy. Third, the importance of finding the correct words. The narrative is very important. No one who engages in a negotiation process wants to appear as he is the loser of a negotiation. And this is certain for the party in the negotiation, for example, in our case, that was in this asymmetric position, in the worst position in terms of power, but it is also certain for those that are in apparently a most powerful position, the Spanish state. If you have a narrative that the objective is to humiliate the other part, then the negotiation would not advance. It's absolutely impossible. So in the end, we became experts on finding some words to describe our advances. For example, when we had the agreement to start with the reform of the criminal code and suppress the crime of sedition in the criminal law of Spain, the Spanish government didn't want to accept a narrative that implies that they are correcting the judiciary. And so the end of repression for them, it was a very word, very hard for them. So we find the idea of dejudicialization, so taking out of the judiciary political conflict and take this conflict to the parliament, to the political discussion. We defend, as I said before, we defend a referendum on independence. They know that this must end in any kind of vote, but I know if I say, okay, in this agreement, the agreement that enabled the process to start, you must accept now the referendum of self-determination. This was impossible to advance and to accept for them. So we find this idea of the vote about the solution in Catalonia, the popular vote. So the importance of finding the correct words that give the room to both parts to advance in the negotiation. Once you enter in a negotiation process, you are changing yourself. The Spanish government, in terms of their political narrative, it's not the same today than it was 5 years ago. And we are not the same that we were 5 years ago in terms of narrative. So for me, it was very important of finding these words, inclusive vocabulary. Fourth, in this process, you will find a lot of spoilers and hardliners. Not people, behavior that act like spoilers and hardliners. Because I think that every person in a movement, despite the fact that could be seen as a hardliner in one moment, must be included in the negotiation. So to avoid these behaviors of that tend to spoil and to block the political negotiation, it's crucial. And sometimes it's very difficult. And as one of my colleagues said before, the most important negotiation is with your people, not with the other part. After the agreement, after the draft of the agreement, you have to come back to your constituency and say to your people, well, we have achieved this. You have to prepare the people that this is a gradual path. That's at least my experience. And the last one, leadership and inclusion. Leadership, it's very, very, very important, because sometimes you have the opportunity, and this opportunity is for a very short period of time. You had the opportunity because the Spanish government, the Socialist Party at that time, needed the votes in the parliament, and we catch this opportunity and started the negotiation process. I acknowledge that they started the negotiation process because of their political interest. But what it matters, it's not the motives, are the results. Are the results is that now we have an amnesty law. So leadership is very, very important. So for this, when 1 year ago or some months ago, I saw the message from your leader, from Holland. This is a sign of leadership, and changing the history of your people from suffering to the hope of peace needs a lot of leadership. Getting risk, obviously, but leadership, and it can only be done by very powerful leaderships. And inclusion. In the end, what we want of this diverse political process that we are explaining are better lives for our people, for our societies, a more equal Catalonia, a more free Catalonia, a united and prosperous Ireland, etc., 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 and a free, equal, democratic, and recognized Kurdistan. So this is the ultimate goal, and for this you have to be inclusive. Thank you so much, and all the support from Catalonia to Kurdistan. We are going to be two free nations in the future. Thank you.